What's going on, everyone? Smith here, and I said I would make an update video if there were any major changes or anything, and I'm definitely keeping my word on that. This is an update video. We got some stuff to talk about. I am now 1,600 miles in with this bike. I know it shows 700 on this video. This video I took a while ago, but it was a fun trail. We did a trail ride, me and this guy, and he's got a YouTube channel too. I'll link it in the description. And it was pretty fun. He's got a KLR 650 and footage of him riding that, so definitely go check that out and give him a subscribe and whatnot. There were things that happened, and we should talk about them. Some issues that I remembered when they happened a little too late. We'll just get the big one out of the way, and that is the rear tire blew up on me while I was riding to work one morning, and I had people warn me on the forums and whatnot, and on other forms of media. These rear tubes, or the tubes just in general, the rear tubes are particularly seem to be an issue because the tires seem to spin out. I've heard people keep their front tubes, but overall, people say the tubes themselves are pretty cheap, and you should get them replaced. And I had heard that. When I initially got the bike, I was planning on primarily using it as a dirt bike, so you know, if something happened that gave me a flat and I was out on the trails, that wouldn't be nearly as bad as being on the road. But then I started using it more and more as a road bike, and then it eventually became a commuter. And yeah, I was riding to work one morning. It was pretty nerve-wracking, to say the least. I was doing about 65. The rear end started fishtailing just a little bit, and I'm like, man, I'm being a little unbalanced or something. Then it started swinging a little wider, and then significantly wider, to where my rear end was almost coming up like I was almost about to slide or something forward. Luckily, I was going down a country road. There was no one in front of me. There was no one behind me. I pulled the bike back in as best I could. And I was immediately trying to slow down. As soon as I knew that something was wrong, I immediately slowed down as fast as I could. And luckily, I was going up a hill, so that really helped. Or I had just started going up a hill. It was I ended up stuck on the side of the road. Had to have my dad come get me and drop me off at my house so I could get my ramp out of my truck and get the bike home and figure out what the heck happened. I took the tube out, and it was cut in half. Definitely, if you get one of these, please, for your own safety, replace the tubes, like on the front and back. But if you only do one, just do the back. What made that day even worse was I had preemptively bought a replacement tube. I think I said in the previous video I bought a replacement tube. And a rim lock, because I heard the rear tire tends to spin out. And that replacement tube I had a leak in it. I went to inflate it. I went to put some air in it, and it started hissing. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So then, missing like more than half a day's worth of work, and driving all over town trying to find a tube that would fit this bike proved to be a bit of a task, but I eventually got a new tube on. I rode the bike back into work, and it was a little nerve-wracking getting back on that thing after that. But the more I've ridden, the more comfortable I've gotten, and I'm basically back to being pretty comfortable and confident in the bike. Other issues, some bolts have started to rattle loose, but they're like external stuff that I guess I put on and didn't lock tight. Like the blinker lights up there, they kind of rattled loose. but all the engine bolts are still rock solid. So we'll see how long that holds up for. But as it is right now, we're 1,600 miles in. I'll post a picture of my odometer up there if I didn't say I would. I'll post a picture up there a minute ago. So it's still doing great. And the question is now, with that little incident, would I recommend this to someone still as is? And I don't think I would recommend this to someone as is. Like, I would recommend this to someone who's prepared to work on a bike. Like, and I think I said that previously. Like, you have to be willing to work, and there's stuff you have to do preventatively. And I knew changing the tubes was one of them, but the tires, when they got here, they were so nice, and they seemed to work so well on the trails, and I had ridden on them for a while. I think I might have been right at 1,000 miles in, or I was really close, because it wasn't too long after this trip to the trails that the tire blew up on me on the road. So, but that's also one of the good things about riding on country roads, obviously, is you can stop pretty quickly because you're not going that fast. That's one of the pluses as far as I'm concerned. You're putting yourself in a lot less danger going down roads with lower speed limits than like the freeway. So there are different challenges, though. You gotta, keep a sharp eye out for wildlife and all, and hazards are more common. Well, maybe not. There's some pretty common freeway hazards. So, but these trails were good fun, and overall, I still absolutely love the bike. If I could go back, I would make the exact same call. I am looking at getting a cruiser for the road, and like this will be my trail camping bike. As fun as this bike is, it's just really not suited for like long rides on the road. Like, it'll get you where you need to go, and it's perfect for putting around town. But if you want to go on any kind of extended trip, if you want to, really stretch your legs and ride some long distances, you want to be riding for a couple hours, you don't want to be on this bike. This bike can do it. Like, this day, in particular, we rode on these trails, and then I rode it. These trails were, I think, a little over an hour away from my house. So I rode out here, rode all over the trails for like an hour or two. I was probably riding for like 2.5 hours, virtually nonstop, without shutting the engine off. So, although we did park a couple of times. I guess I did shut the engine off a couple of times, but we never stayed stopped for very long. And then I think once we got to the end of the trails, when we rode back, we rode all the way out. So, easily 2 hours riding nonstop. So, it can do it. This bike can truck along for quite a distance and for quite a while. But you gotta be on the lookout for those potential hazards and what have you. It is, like, I think for me personally, the idea of having a dual sport for trail riding and good fun like this is fantastic. And then having a cruiser, just some kind of small little cruiser, for riding on the road, commuting to work, any kind of extended riding that I want to do. This is more of, I just want to get to the trails, or I just want to run to the store, or, I have a short commute, which my commute is like borderline too long for this. And I think I'd mentioned in the previous video, but the last leg of my commute is what's really settling me on getting a cruiser with a much bigger engine. And that is the last bit of my commute. There's some very long, very steep hills. And this thing can maintain speed going up some small, medium-ish hills. But anything that gets even remotely steep, this This bike it loses so much speed so quickly. Now it'll get you up the steepest of hills on the trails. It's got no problem doing that. But you're not trying to go, 50, 60 mile an hour up any hills on the trails. So when you're doing that on the road and there are cars around you, it can be a bit irritating to just watch that speedometer go down and just know there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to watch it go down and hope it doesn't go down too much. It's pretty frustrating. All that aside, I'm still having an absolute blast. Every time I get on the bike and get off it, I'm just so glad that I have it. I'm just like, this is fantastic. And most people can learn how to do pretty much anything in terms of working on this bike. Like, it's nothing super complicated. But it just, it's one of those things you have to be willing to put the work in. And for a lot of people, that's like a pretty steep hill. Like, for one of my friends, he's like, absolutely not. I'm not going to be wrenching on a bike. I want it to just be ready to ride straight from the dealership. And that's fair enough. It's absolutely reasonable, but you're not going to get that sweet price tag, So, bit of give and take on that end. Overall, it's still holding up well. I would still recommend it. I would just say just be cautious and take all tips and advice seriously and just prepare yourself. Loctite everything and do your research because you're going to need to. I think that about wraps it up for this. Just a quick little update video. Everything's continuing kind of as expected, except for the obvious blowing up of the tire there. I did have one of the chain tensioner bolts broke on me, but it only broke partially while I was wrenching on it. Again, it doesn't help that I wrench too hard. Either way, keep an eye on those bolts. Maybe consider replacing them if/when you have any problems. Minor bolts here and there are not a concern of mine, just at all. I'm constantly checking the major bolts. They've been really tight. They Loctited the hell out of a lot of these, and you can really tell. So, this thing, by the way, one of the biggest things I had been paranoid about was getting the bike wet. Oh yeah, let me show you this clip. So yeah, this is me not realizing that going faster through the stream is going to cause more water to run up, but just to show you how water resistant these bikes are. Yep, I was soaked. I did dry up on the way home, but that was not that fun. I was impressed with the bike though. It was steaming, but it kept going. And I didn't have any issues after the fact. I was worried that something was going to break, and this kind of goes to something I've been paranoid about with regards to the bike since I've got it. I have heard people getting caught out in the rain and like blowing fuses and stuff like that, or just leaving their bike out in the rain one day and then they go to turn it on the next day and it doesn't start. Fortunately, I haven't had any of those issues, but definitely be wary of that. Like, anytime I'm at work and I think it's gonna rain, I just put the cover over the bike. And just, people would be like, oh, they're fine, they're made to get wet. And it's like, yeah, I'm gonna put the cover over it anyway, just to be safe. But so far, I have been caught out in the rain a couple of times, and obviously I just, flooded I just soaked the bike, and it was fine. So, it seems to be all right. I don't know if they've taken extra steps with the newer models to like preserve the internal electronics or protect it, or I've just gotten lucky. But definitely be wary about the electronics. I say that as someone who hasn't had any issue with the electronics, but I could in the future. That is probably the only major thing that I'm really paranoid about. So, aside from that, these things are still fantastic. I'm still thoroughly impressed. For, $2,000 on Amazon gets you a lot of fun and some really good memories. Like, it was really fun riding out here. And it was funny too. I was actually going to go home at the end of this ride, and especially after I had got completely drenched like that. But after I dried off down the road, I stopped and parked, and I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to keep riding. And so me and that other guy, we just kept riding for a good couple more hours, and the bike did great. I basically rode it all day, from early in the morning to late in the afternoon, and it was the first prolonged stress test. I think that about covers it. It is we had good fun, and I look forward to more trail riding with this bike, and putting a lot more miles on it. So I will make any update videos if anything goes wrong, and just keep you posted on what to look out for and what I run into, as it were. And obviously do your research, look for other YouTube channels that talk about these. Don't just, every bikes are like cars, some people get lemons, some people don't. You could get a good one, you could get a bad one. I feel like I got a good one, so we'll see. Fingers crossed. And I'll catch you in the next one.